Modern celebrities are engineered to look immortal. We build them up into larger-than-life figures, living in a polished ecosystem designed to look insulated from normal, everyday human struggle. When one of these untouchable icons suddenly dies in a chaotic or bizarre way, it sends an immediate, profound shockwave through the public consciousness. This diagram illustrates a psychological response called cognitive dissonance, the mental friction we experience when reality contradicts our deep-seated beliefs. When an untouchable persona meets a mundane, messy death, the gap between those two ideas creates a massive void in our understanding. As a society, we hate an unresolved narrative. The moment that void opens up, our immediate collective impulse is to forcefully fill it with something, anything that makes sense of the tragedy. We aren't going to relitigate the forensic details of any specific tragic death here. Instead, we are going to look under the hood of the culture machine to see the mechanical process of how a bizarre passing mutates into a permanent cultural legend. This flowchart breaks down that process into three distinct stages. First, the anomaly. Next, the exploitation. And finally, the conspiracy. This pipeline represents the roadmap for how a specific tragedy is reorganized and eventually replaced by the allure of a mystery. The first phase of this pipeline rarely starts with a wild theory. Public suspicion usually begins with a genuine, objective flaw in the initial police investigation. In high-profile cases, you routinely find contaminated crime scenes, lost toxicology reports, or autopsies pushed through the system at unusual speeds. These aren't necessarily sinister cover-ups. When local authorities encounter massive entourages, private security, and the intense pressure of VIP treatment, standard police protocols inherently break down. As soon as those initial systemic errors occur, we enter Phase 2. The 24/7 news cycle catches wind of the anomalies and immediately puts them under a microscope. We live in an attention economy where capturing human focus translates directly into dollars. Tabloids and media networks have an immense financial incentive to stretch out a high-profile tragedy and use the celebrity's name for maximum revenue. This diagram shows the specific tactic the media uses to do that. They take a minor instance of incompetence, say a misplaced lab result, and frame it as deliberate malice. That generates headline revenue, which then pays for further speculation, extending the life cycle of the story. The media apparatus has zero incentive to actually solve the mystery. An ongoing, chaotic investigation is infinitely more profitable than a tragic, simple truth. While producers are cashing checks, consumers are left drowning in a distorted narrative environment, trying to process their grief through a barrage of conflicting headlines. To understand how fans react, you have to look at pareidolia. This is a psychological tendency where human brains automatically impose meaningful patterns onto random, chaotic data, like seeing a face in a cloud. Grieving fans apply this pattern recognition retroactively. They comb through final lyrics, obscure interview quotes, and last pieces of art, looking for moments of unintended meaning that appear to predict their end. Building a conspiracy theory offers a surprising amount of structural comfort. Believing that an elite shadow organization orchestrated a hit, or that the celebrity faked their own death, restores a sense of deliberate order to the universe. The alternative is terrifying. Fans are actively avoiding the realization that a powerful, wealthy, beloved figure was ultimately defeated by a mundane accident, a quiet addiction, or sheer bad luck. Constructing a massive, intricate conspiracy is an act of preservation, a psychological defense mechanism built to shield society from the uncomfortable reality of human fragility. When you step back and look at the historical footprint of a strange celebrity death, you realize the pipeline accomplishes something fascinating over the long term. As decades pass, the actual facts of the case erode. The person who died begins to fade, and the surviving myth morphs to reflect the specific anxieties and desires of the culture analyzing it. In a typical celebrity death, the public deeply mourns the individual, but eventually their story concludes. The books are closed. But a strange death leads to a different fate. The human reality of the person recedes, replaced by a cultural ghost. This status grants them a bizarre form of eternal relevance. Because their final chapter is permanently missing, they remain perpetually debated, analyzed, and alive in the zeitgeist. Our systemic obsession with solving these bizarre deaths functions as a collective refusal to let our cultural icons truly pass away.